one. What? Take a photo. Pues claro. ¿Dónde me pongo?
Coño, pues que te pongas aquí.
¿Quieres?
Una foto, es verdad.
Okay.
Picture.
This is a picture time. ¿Y tú dónde vas, Zudaire? Que tienes que estar aquí.
A ver. Gracias.
Okay, after this moment, because it was very important to take a picture with this amazing panel, I am very happy to be your moderator today because I'm surrounded by friends. And well, I will ask, first of all, I will ask you to introduce yourself. If you want, we can start from you, Andrés.
Okay.
So tell us a bit
Thank you,
more.
Paloma. Thank you, Sol Summit. And thank you, SpainCap, for having us today. I am Andres. I'm GP at the Venture City. We are a global fund based in Madrid, but also in Miami, San Francisco, and Sao Paulo. We invest globally in software companies, specifically focus on software on health tech, cybersecurity, fintech, but we have also interest on other verticals, so we are vertical agnostic in a way. We manage around $150 million to invest in those companies, and happy to be here with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we will continue with Mercedes to see if you are really focused. So Mercedes, please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you SpainCap for inviting us also to participate here today. I come from ICO, that is the National Promotional Bank, so I work for the subsidiary investing company in equity. We have nowadays 7.1 billion under management, and I am director for Fonicones Tech, that is a fund devoted to invest in scale-ups and deep tech.
Mm-hmm. One of the great dynamizers of the Spanish ecosystem. And well, let's move to another very interesting fund. So Javier, please, your turn with.
Thank you, Paloma. After all the international locations of these guys and so many assets under management, I don't know what we're doing here.
Exactly.
So I'm Javier Torremocha. I'm one of the co-founders of Kibo Ventures. We're an early stage fund. We have invested in like 70 companies so far, investing out of our third fund, and mostly doing B2B early stage investors in companies like Flywire, Job and Talent, Mitiga, which is one of our latest investments that it's pretty much on the verge of what's happening today around deep tech, climate, and AI. So looking forward to this panel.
Mm-hmm. And well, your turn, Antonio, as another great dynamizer of this ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Paloma. Thank you so much, SpainCap, for having us, especially because we're not investors, so you're not international, not even an investor, right? I'm the managing director of Endeavor in Spain. We are a global nonprofit organization that supports high-impact entrepreneurs, so the fastest growing entrepreneurs, the fastest growing companies that go international, go global. We'll talk about the why we support those companies, but we're very happy to be working with many of the companies you guys have invested in.
Mm-hmm. Antonio was trying that you do not pitch to him after the panel, but he's also a connector, so you can pitch to him, and he can introduce you to other fans here in Spain. So, well, we have very interesting ecosystem now here in Spain. I will give you several data so that we can comment on the health of the health status of the ecosystem in Spain. And well, according to a report that of Dealroom, Endeavor, BBVA, GoHub, and Key Fund, the sector in Spain last year raised for nearly, well, a bit more of 4 billion euros. That is a bit less than what we have had the year before. You know that the ecosystem, the VC sector is going a bit down, is getting a bit slower. But here in Spain, things seems that are maintaining. So what are your point of views? This is an open question to all of you, so feel free to jump in and comment your thoughts on the health of the ecosystem.
I think that it's quite an interesting moment. And we are realizing as public partner, we work always under a public-private scheme, so we need the part side of the market. It's true that the fundraising maybe is moving a little bit slower, but there are many opportunities. I think that Spain is a safe haven place. Many international players, for example, are looking at Spain and looking for opportunities here, maybe because their pricing is going to be not so heavy as in other areas.
Okay, Joel.
I think this conference is a very good testament of the health of the ecosystem. Now I remember the first edition, I think it was 2013, and it was held at Mutua's office in Madrid, and there were probably like 50 attendees altogether, no? And out of the 50, 40 were sponsors, no? So all dressed in suit and tie. I think walking around and seeing so much energy, so many startups, but also so many international funds attending the conference is a great sign of how the Spanish ecosystem has evolved.
And you mentioned that at Endeavor we're connectors, so we connect, we talk with a lot of people, right? And I think the fact that even if there was a small downward trend in the last year, we're still better off than most other countries in Europe, right? And the amount of calls that I'm getting, the amount of people trying to contact us because they want to learn more about the ecosystem, right, it hasn't stopped. So we think, to Javier's point, I think there's a ton of interest. There's a ton of dynamism in the ecosystem, and at the same time, there's a ton of interest from international funds trying to find companies or good investments in Spain.
And Andres, you are in the earlier stage. Yeah. I don't know if you want to add something about that.
So for us, we think we are in a very good moment in the ecosystem. Probably it's one of the, I would say, the healthiest time ever. And I know that it's hard to raise capital, probably harder than before. I've run 2 companies, so I know I know something about fundraising for my own startups. And it's true that today is harder, but we have a more healthier ecosystem to build companies. Because at the end of the day, the goal is not to raise capital. The goal is always to build a very strong business. And what you have today, guys, as entrepreneurs, is a very fair place where you can compete. There is no huge rounds on other competitors that allows them to buy your talent, your clients, without paying attention to the customer acquisition cost or other metrics that make sense. So when I was an entrepreneur, that is the kind of ecosystem that I would love. If you see also the numbers from Spain Cap that provided a few weeks ago about the ecosystem here in Spain, it's not that bad. I mean, we've been launching companies with much less money than the money that we have today in Spain and in Europe. So I would say it's not 2021, it's not 2022, sorry, it's not 2021, it's not 2020, but there is still a lot of money to fundraise your projects and your dreams. So I have like a very optimistic point of view on this matter.
Okay, there's a lot of dry power in the market, so it's a good day to pitch your solutions to investors because there's a lot of money here in South Summit this year. And well, Mercedes, from the public sector, how do you see the situation? I know that you are doing a lot of things to push the ecosystem and to do so. Please tell us a bit more.
It's true that after a COVID-19 crisis, and now that we are really in a situation where there is no one black swan, but there is a folk of black swans around, we are trying to really push the market, to move the traditional venture capitals to grow their funds, really to put bigger tickets in companies. We really want to create value, to create a good employment, and that's why we launched this initiative of Funny Connect Tech to support the scale-ups and deep tech. It's true that after the crisis, the assets under management has increased 4 billion euros. That is a lot. So we have Fonico Global, that it has been historically very important player, and it continues to have this very important role. And now we are adding new products and trying to move the private sector and all these guys here to really change their mind a little bit. We are analyzing also another new strategy to move more in technology transfer funds. So we have really this counter-cyclical role at ICO, and we try to work, and we work very well with the private sector.
Okay, so now let's talk about trends. So if you have moved around, you have seen that this South Summit is around sustainability, and it's also around, because it could not be the other way, other way, it's about AI. So, well, do you think that, according to this trend, so in venture capital, we always say that this motto of move fast and break things, is this motto changing? There is a shift around sustainability, conscious investments. What do you think about that? So one for you.
I think definitely no, but I think we need to move away from trends, because trends or fancy sort of words, because they come and go eventually, and we've seen that in the past with fintech, and there were a lot of companies that were neither fin nor tech. Obviously, there's been very relevant fintech investments, AI, and so on. But I think at the end of the day, it's really, what's the technology behind that? And I think on a macro geopolitical level, we're seeing very interesting things happening. Sequoia announced yesterday or 2 days ago they were splitting the funds. I think the war in Ukraine is definitely having an impact in technology, because probably Russia would have not done it without China supporting that, and that really means blocks, no? Blocks. One is China, and China against the US, and sort of Europe is in the middle, no? And the European Commission, Fondico, and similar players in Europe have done an excellent job in fostering the ecosystem and supporting funds like us, that we in turn support companies. But I think the next wave, and Mercedes will probably agree, is not just startups, but deep tech, real defensible technologies, no? And I think that's where probably Europe is lagging a bit behind in terms of cybersecurity, AI with applications around big data and so on, no? As opposed to pure consumer models that were really the ones growing or that had very high visibility. So I think it's a combination of sustainability for sure, but AI for sure as an infrastructure, but with very deep tech applications that can really build a defensible industry in Europe. And so it's going to be, and putting all those together is going to be more complex.
So which is your point?
Yeah, our vision on AI, I agree. It's true that we follow trends. We like AI companies right now, but the thing is that how can you separate sound from music, right? Sorry, noise from music, right? That's the thing. And there's a lot of noise about AI today. And since we were born, we are looking for three things. We are looking for very ambitious entrepreneurs. We are looking for very tech-driven entrepreneurs, and also very data-driven entrepreneurs. So even if when this AI thing wasn't on all the panels in South Summit, on all the paper that we were reading, the companies that we were investing in were already using AI. So it's not something from the last 3 years. Actually, AI started in 1950. Alan Turing was the first one using AI in his machine, right? So it's not the last thing that we have to justify a very expensive investment. It's not that thing. It's another technology that we use as a mean for an end. That's the thing. So we follow trends because we think that when there is a trend, you need to pay attention, but we try to separate music from noise.
I would like to let Mercedes talk about deep tech and
Yes,
what are we doing.
no, adding a little bit, maybe Phonicon Tech is the first time that Axis invest without not being sector agnostic, but with a focus in deep tech. And having this, or trying to look for these deep tech companies, and without having any preconception, we have found that there are many of them that have a lot of sustainable impact. So, I mean, for the funds it's easy because you have the Article 8 or Article 9, so you can select more or less. But for the companies looking for deep tech, we realized that investing in quantum computing, investing in the space or in other sectors, we found that they had a strong sustainability profile. So they're really linked.
They're really linked. Defensibility, sustainability, and do not focus in trends. I don't know if you see a lot of entrepreneurs in Endeavor. So, which are you seeing a lot of AI? What are your thoughts?
We are, but I agree with Andres, right? Now AI is sort of a buzzword, the same blockchain was a few years ago, right? And everybody seems to be doing AI, but the reality is that it's the definition of an exponential curve. Everybody has been doing it for a long time, and now we're starting to see a lot of results. We're starting to see consumer applications that are getting used. The only thing I'm thinking, and it's more a reflection listening to you guys, right, is especially for you guys entrepreneurs, right? As you can see, investors are interested. They're investing, right? It's just a matter of finding the right project, the right application, right? And the other thing is, I feel that in the next months, we're going to see two things, right? Especially more, I think, on the AI side than on the sustainability side, which is we're going to see a lot of companies grow, be born, grow, and die, a lot of them, right? But very, very early stage. But we're going to see a ton of innovation and a ton of new applications. And I think it's going to be a really fun time for entrepreneurs. But definitely, I agree that we shouldn't be following trends, but the reality is that this is here to stay. Everybody is doing some sort of sustainability or AI play.
Okay, well,
and sustainability is also a very broad concept. No, you can do many things. You can have impact and social impact, climate impact, all type of impact born within the sustainability concept. No? So I think around that is okay. What kind of impact is this having? What is the technology behind that? Is it a defensible technology, and what are the applications from a business perspective? No, what is the business model behind that?
Yep.
And I think it's a good example of something that probably would not have emerged from Spain, last decade or whatever. But this, Mitiga, which is coming out of the supercomputing center in Barcelona, is really building their own physics-based models which help analyze and predict and assess climate catastrophes. No? And that is a huge, and as opposed to traditional models which are based on probabilistic situations based on what happened the last 50 years. Well, we all know because we're seeing it all day, and fortunately the world is suffering from events that are very hard to predict based on historical models. No, okay. Yep. So you have the models which are trained with AI, and they run billions of iterations on the supercomputing center. Okay, you have the sustainability side of it, which is okay. How can we? There are literally 300 billion worth of losses due to climate catastrophes in the last 3 years. And then you need what do I do with it now? What's my product, or what are my products? What's the business case? What's the unit economics on that? All, in a moment of the market where you need to have very clear economics. Yeah. Now, and not, I wouldn't say path to profitability at the early stage, but really understanding, the economics, how, and for you guys that are launching companies, it's very relevant to understand, what are my, costs, and what are my revenues, and understand, the margins and what it takes to build a global business.
I'm going to remark that because, I'm from Wide. I have been working with entrepreneurs, very early stage entrepreneurs, for a long time. And I want to remark because sometimes when you entrepreneurs approach investors, so some of the things that you have been saying here, I want you to have them in mind when you are going to pitch to investors. So when we are talking a lot about technology, about AI, but do not focus on the technology, focus on the unit economics, on the things that make sense, your real business. And when we are talking about AI, defensibility is something that we have remarked, but maybe not enough. So defensibility of your idea. So a lot of things are going to happen about AI. This is like cloud computing, development costs, productivity costs are going to go down. So how to make your product sustainable from also from a business point of view. And well, another thing that we work a lot here with Endeavor and with all the agents in the ecosystem is sometimes to dignify the VC sector. Sometimes it seems that we are like killing employment, and that's not the case. So which is the real impact of the VC ecosystem and the startups in the real economy? So I don't know who wants to take this question. I can just throw it to the air. Okay.
I can start. To me, I don't think we need to dignify the ecosystem. I think the ecosystem dignifies itself through their impact, right? What we're seeing is, if you compare the ecosystem when you guys started, right, like 10, 15 years ago, right, everything was super, super early stage. It was still a leap of faith. We needed to believe that all the investment that we were putting into the early stage startups was actually going to become something, right? 10, 15 years later, what we see today is that has become a real thing. It's true. We did a study with WIDA in the context of Scale-Up Spin, a program that we do with to support scaling companies. And what we saw is that, for example, the fastest growing companies that we see in the country, they have 1,000 employees, right? 1,000 direct employees. Some of them, they can generate up to 100,000 indirect employees, right? So they're having a real impact, right? There's especially the direct employment, it tends to be very highly qualified employment. And those are, we have an estimate in Spain, there's about 300 to 400 companies that fall into the scale-up category. And those companies are having a real impact. They're going international. They generated employment not only in Spain, but also in other countries, right? And then we're seeing something that I'm particularly in love with, which is, and sorry, for those who know Endeavor, you know that I have to say the word multiplier effect. We're seeing how many of the companies that started a few years ago, like Cabify or Job and Talent or Glovo, some of the earlier ones, they're starting to generate more companies. They're becoming sort of the cradle for other entrepreneurs. Just we did a study out of Cabify. I think there's 100 companies are being founded by former Cabify employees. So I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the direct impact of these companies. They're generating employment. They're growing in revenues. But at the same time, they're planting the seed for other entrepreneurs like you guys to start their own companies. So I'm super excited about what's coming because I think we've been planting seeds for a long time, and now we're starting to get the fruit, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm going. Well, I don't know if you want to add something about the impact on the economy.
I think Antonio has already mentioned everything. I think, as you said, I think we are creating a lot of impact, but there is a lot of room for improvement still, right? I remember to read the SpainCap's report a few weeks ago, and I think it's just the 5% of employees are produced by companies invested by private capital in our country. So if you compare this with other markets, we are still below the average. So I think there's a lot of still for improvement, even if the job done until now has been like substantial.
Mm-hmm. And building of that, after the Series A, nearly 70% of the growth capital comes from outside of Spain. So sometimes it's not sometimes, it's 20% of the companies, the scale-ups here in Spain, have to move their headquarters outside. It's like we are kind of losing a bit of growth.
Don't worry. That's why.
This was
That's why we launched it for Nikon's Tech. We use the rationale when explaining that some scale-ups or startups that had this potential, they decided to leave because the biggest investors were in the States, so they moved to Delaware, so we were missing all this value, all this job creation, and all. So we decided to launch this initiative, and we are trying to convince our friends from Kibo. We are also doing some partnership with corporates, and it's very important, for example, that we have Telefonica. And this year I was shocked because there are really a lot of initiatives from corporates. They are really moving in this arena, and they're increasing the rate for the venture capital, and that's very important for us because they are giving this private support that we need to really push those companies to stay in Spain. And we are investing only in Spanish companies, and we are asking them to stay in Spain during the time and to create this good quality employment in Spain. We really have this feeling, and there are many entrepreneurs who have this commitment with Spain.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and from the corporate side, if there is any corporate in the room, I really encourage you to invest in the startups and to work with these guys, with funds, because it's really fun. So, yeah. No, we are enjoying it. It's not only a question of survival, that it is. It's also that you can have a lot of fun. And what I have, it's just a minute left for all of you, for all of you. So, do you have any final remarks that you want to give to the audience on the health of the ecosystem, and final remarks for the regulators that I know that some of them are here?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah.
I can start. Yeah. So, as I said before, I think we are in a very good moment to create and run your own startup. It's not true that funds are not investing. I think this is like a message that I don't know why the general consensus is on it, and my feeling, and actually at the Venture City, we are investing, and what the number says is that, of course, everybody's investing less, but still there is a lot of money. And I would say it's probably a moment in time where you can build product and real tech behind those products without any kind of noise of competitors, huge rounds that doesn't make sense, trying to get valuation that the company won't get, never in a more healthy way. So I feel very positive, and it's true that we have also the other, we see companies operations on the other side of the ocean, and what we have seen there is that funds are reinvesting again more and more. We have a fund from New York, from Miami also here today, and they were telling to us yesterday that they are closing a lot of operation in these next 6 months than in the prior 12 months. So I think things are gonna change very fast.
Mm-hmm.
I would, very quickly say it's never a bad time to start a business. I think the ecosystem now has all the pieces that you need from the starting business angels, seed funds, early stage funds, growth funds. All those amazing companies will definitely get funding. There are more and more entrepreneurs starting businesses, so that's also adding some complication to it. But it's, I think this country and the world is really prepared. There is, but really focus on the technology, on preparing, on building something that makes a big difference, that's defensible, the technology, and think global.
I'll add a minor detail, which is I truly believe on the impact of having not just startups as scale-ups, so later stage companies out of Spain remaining Spanish. So my ask to everybody, whatever you are, right, is what can you do to make that happen, right? If you don't feel like starting a company, maybe you can join a scale up and learn, and then potentially you'll become an entrepreneur later. You can see that there's plenty of really smart investors that are pushing to invest in later stage in bigger companies. The regulators, the ask is make sure that we have an environment that is friendly, not just for starting companies, but also for growing them, for going international. So it's what can we do, right? How can we focus, each one of us from our own seat, what can we add to the equation so that companies have a better environment to grow?
Okay, that's great. So Mercedes?
So I would say that there is a good moment with a lot of dry power. If you are a company, do not hesitate to move your valuation, try to raise your money. Yeah, and if you are a fund and you want to grow, or you are an international fund and you want to invest in Spain, come to us, and we are trying to really to push the sector, the ecosystem, and Spain is a good place to invest nowadays.
Okay, so, well, thank you very much to José Zudaire, to SpainCap, for organizing this panel, and thank you very much to our panelists, so give them a big applause.
Thank you.
And pitch to them.
Thank you.
Gracias.